The wind carried dust and whispers across the plains that morning, the kind of whispers that traveled faster than any horse. They said a man had returned, a man long thought dead. His name was Samuel Carver, and the last anyone saw of him, he was riding off to fight a war that stole more souls than it saved. Now, after 3 years, the war had spat him back out. His horse limped down the dirt road toward a cabin that stood alone against the horizon, weather-beaten but proud, like the woman who kept it alive. The place looked smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he'd just grown older, more hollow. The sound of the saddle creaking was the only proof that time hadn't stopped completely. When he finally dismounted, his boots sank into the dust like the ground was trying to claim him again. He stood there for a moment, hat in hand, staring at the door. He could hear faint laughter from inside, the kind of laughter he'd once fought to protect. Then silence, the sound of a chair scraping, footsteps. The door opened and there she was, Clara. Her hair was darker now, streaked with years he hadn't been there to see. The pink dress she wore was faded at the seams, hands roughened by work that once belonged to him. Her eyes met his, and in that single look, every unanswered letter, every lonely night, every grave silence between them filled the space like a storm. "You're alive," she said, barely above a whisper. "So it seems," Samuel replied. Behind her, a young man stood from the table, taller than Samuel remembered, shoulders broad, eyes hard. Eli, their boy. The last time Samuel saw him, he was barely 12, chasing fireflies behind the barn. Now, he looked at his father like one might look at a ghost. Clara's voice trembled as she spoke again. "Why are you here?" Samuel looked past her. Through the cabin he once built plank by plank. The same table still stood near the window, the same clay lamp flickered on the shelf. But the air felt different. He could smell bread baking, hear the ticking of the clock he'd carved, yet none of it felt like his anymore. "I came home," he said simply. Eli's jaw tightened. "Home?" His voice cut through the quiet. "You don't get to call it that." Samuel said nothing. There was no word heavy enough to fill what he'd left behind. Clara stepped aside, hesitant. He walked in, the wooden floor creaking under his boots. Every object in the room seemed to remember him, and yet none welcomed him. A half-sewn cloth lay on the table beside a pair of shears. The faint smell of soap mixed with wood smoke hung in the air. He took it in like a man who'd forgotten what life looked like. Eli returned to his seat, picking up a knife to carve a piece of wood, small, precise strokes, sharp enough to draw blood. Clara sat across from him, hands folded tight. Samuel stood near the door, unwilling to take another step. He tried to speak, but words refused him. 3 years of silence could not be undone by one breath. Finally, he said, "I heard you thought I was dead. We buried you in our hearts long ago," Clara said, her voice steady now. There was no word, no body, only waiting. "I sent letters," he murmured. "They never came." Outside, a wagon creaked to a halt. Through the open door, Samuel saw 2 little girls, one in a blue dress, one in pink, standing near the fence. The sight struck him like a blow. He hadn't known them. Clara turned, following his gaze. "They're yours," she said softly. "Anna and Ruth." He couldn't move. The older one stared at him curiously. The younger hid behind her sister's skirt. The man standing beside them, Jacob Miller, their neighbor, lifted a hand in cautious greeting. Samuel nodded back, though every part of him wanted to fall to his knees and weep for the years gone. Jacob stepped closer to Clara. "Everything all right, ma'am?" She nodded quickly. "Everything's fine, Jacob. Thank you." Samuel caught the way Jacob looked at her. The kind of look a man gives when he's been helping, protecting, maybe hoping. It twisted something inside him. Something he didn't dare name. After Jacob led the girls away, silence filled the cabin again. Samuel placed his hat on the table and said, "I didn't come to cause trouble." Eli scoffed. "Then why are you here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he glanced at the rifle mounted above the hearth, the same one his father had given him before the war. He remembered his father's words. A man protects what's his, even if it kills him. He'd done that, or tried to, But what good was protection when the ones you loved stopped needing it? Later that afternoon, he walked into town. The sun was low, painting the sky in blood and copper. Every step he took drew eyes. Some faces he knew. Mr. Dobbs, who once bought his horses, the preacher who'd married him and Clara, men who had fought beside him before the war turned men into ghosts. No one spoke. They only watched. At the trading post, he approached the counter. "Need work," he said. The shopkeeper, an older man with a scar across his cheek, didn't look up from counting coins. "You're Carver, ain't you?" Samuel nodded. The man's hands paused. "Heard you left your regiment to die." Samuel's jaw tightened. "You heard wrong." "Maybe," the man said, ice cold. "But sometimes stories live longer than truth." Behind him, a group of cowhands laughed. One of them muttered, "Ain't no hero returns with empty hands." The words burned through him. Samuel turned, gaze steady. "You want to repeat that?" The man smirked. "You gonna shoot me like you shot them boys in the valley?" The room fell silent. Samuel's hand hovered near his revolver, but stopped short. He took a slow breath, then turned away. The laughter followed him out the door, like a curse. By dusk, he was back at the cabin. The lamplight glowed through the window, flickering against Clara's silhouette as she tucked the girls into bed. Eli sat by the fire, carving still, the knife flashing in rhythm with his anger. Samuel stood outside, staring through the glass, unable to step in. His reflection looked like that of a stranger, a man half buried in his own mistakes. The night wind rustled the trees, carrying faint echoes of a life he no longer recognized. Inside, Clara's voice floated softly through the door, singing the lullaby she used to hum when he couldn't sleep after the war. It struck something deep within him, something fragile and aching. He whispered to the empty air, "3 years I fought to come home. And now home won't have me." The wind answered with a low sigh, carrying dust and sorrow through the cracks of the cabin. He stood there until the lamp went dark, until even the stars seemed to turn away. And for the first time since the war, Samuel Carver understood what true exile meant, not being lost in a battlefield, but standing at your own doorstep and realizing you no longer belonged. He turned away from the house, hat in hand, as the night swallowed him whole. The dawn came slow and gray, dragging a chill across the prairie. Samuel woke before the first rooster's cry, his hands raw from the work he'd forced upon himself. He'd taken to mending the fence, chopping wood, and clearing brush, though no one had asked him to. It was a kind of penance. Sweat and silence. That was all he could offer now. From the porch, he could see Clara moving through the kitchen window, her sleeves rolled to her elbows, steam rising from the kettle. She didn't look up, didn't wave. She hadn't since he came back. Eli came out moments later, rifle slung over his shoulder. The boy gave a curt nod, the kind of man gives another when politeness is all that keeps him from saying what he really feels. "I'll check the traps by the river," he said. "I'll come with you," Samuel offered. "No need," Eli replied without turning. "You wouldn't know where they are." The words stung sharper than he led on. He watched his son stride off into the trees, tall and sure, a stranger, wearing the face of the boy he once taught to fish. By midday, the sun hung hot and unkind. Samuel was stacking wood near the barn when he heard hooves. He turned and saw a rider approaching from the ridge, dust swirling behind him, the glint of a silver buckle catching the light. As the man drew closer, Samuel felt a cold twist in his gut. Jonas read. He hadn't seen Jonas since the valley, since the night screams drowned under cannon fire and blood turned the river red. Jonas had been his friend once, or something close to it. Now, the smirk on his face looked carved from old lies. "Well, I'll be damned," Jonas called as he dismounted. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again, Sam. Folks said you'd gone and disappeared for good." "Maybe I should have," Samuel said quietly. Jonas laughed, brushing dust from his coat. "You always did have a way with guilt. Thought I'd come by, pay respects to the living dead." His eyes drifted toward the cabin. "Heard you found your way back home. Sweet little place. Pretty wife, too." Samuel's jaw tightened. "State your business." "Just passing through," Jonas said easily, though his tone carried an edge. But since I'm here, maybe you and I can settle a few old accounts. You see, word's been spreading. Folks think you deserted your men at Gray Ridge. Funny thing is, I was there too. I know what really happened. Samuel's pulse quickened. You don't know a damn thing. Jonas grinned. Oh, I know plenty. Like how you begged me to hold the line, and when the bullets started flying, you vanished into the smoke. Left me to clean up your mess. But don't worry, no hard feelings. I've done well for myself since. Clara appeared in the doorway then, her voice calm but cold. If you've come to stir trouble, you can turn around and ride back where you came from. Jonas tipped his hat. Ma'am, didn't mean no disrespect, just visiting an old friend. You've had your visit, Samuel said. Jonas's eyes lingered on Clara a moment too long. Then he smirked. You always did have a way of landing on your feet, Sam. Must be nice, coming home to all this after running from your past. He mounted his horse slowly, still smiling. I'll be seeing you around. The sound of hooves faded, but the tension hung thick as smoke. Clara's face had gone pale. Who was that? Someone I should have buried a long time ago, Samuel said. That night, the sky bruised purple with storm clouds. The air felt restless, charged. Samuel sat outside, the lantern light flickering against his tired face. Inside, he could hear Clara reading softly to the girls. The sound steadied him, if only for a moment. But peace never lasted long. A creak near the barn made him stand. He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the sound. The door was ajar, swaying in the wind. Inside, the shadows stretched long. He caught a faint movement, Jonas stepping from the dark, gun drawn, the grin gone for his face. You thought I'd let it be? Jonas hissed. You stole my chance, Carver. While you played dead, I took the blame for you. They called me a coward because of what you did. I didn't ask you to lie, Samuel said, voice low. No, Jonas said, circling him, but you sure didn't stop me. You think coming back here makes you clean? The wind howled through the cracks, rattling the lanterns. Jonas raised his gun. I ought to end this right now. Samuel moved fast. The rifle cracked against Jonas's arm. The shot went wide, tearing into a wooden post. Horses screamed. The two men collided, fists and fury. Jonas's elbow caught Samuel's jaw. Samuel slammed him against the stall. The lantern toppled, spilling oil, flames licking up dry straw. For a moment, both froze, watching fire climb toward the rafters. Jonas shoved him hard and bolted through the smoke. Samuel staggered after him, but the heat drove him back. He grabbed a bucket, doused the flames until the barn hissed into darkness again. By the time he stumbled outside, Jonas was gone. Only the night wind remained, heavy with the smell of smoke and rain. Clara appeared at the doorway, her shawl pulled tight. Samuel, what happened? Jonas, he said, breathing hard. He's not done. She stepped closer, eyes sharp with fear and fury. You brought this here. Whatever you ran from, you've led it straight to our door. He looked at her, every word of hers striking deeper than any bullet. I didn't run, he said. I was captured. They said we were finished, but I fought to get back. To you. Her voice broke. And you think that makes it right? We buried you in our hearts, Samuel. We learned to live without you. Now you bring ghosts into our house and call it redemption. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the truth twisted on his tongue. The only sound was the low roll of thunder across the plains. Eli stepped out then, rifle in hand, eyes narrowed. I saw him ride off, he said. Who was that? Someone who wants me dead, Samuel answered. Eli's grip tightened. You should have stayed gone. Clara's hand shot out, stopping him. Enough. Her gaze turned to Samuel. If you mean to stay, then fight for something that still matters. Not your pride, not your guilt. Us. Rain began to fall, slow, steady drops pattering against the roof. Samuel stood there, soaked, his breath unsteady. He realized he'd been fighting for survival so long, he'd forgotten how to live. He looked out at the horizon where lightning split the sky and said, almost to himself, he'll be back. Clara turned toward the door. Then be ready. The storm broke open, rain drumming the earth, washing away the ash from the fire. Inside, The girls huddled near the window, watching the lightning flash across their father's face. His silhouette looked both fragile and fierce, like a man haunted but not yet beaten. He stood there until the rain soaked him through, the thunder rumbling like distant drums. Somewhere out there, Jonas Red was waiting, and Samuel knew the fight wasn't over. But for the first time since he'd come home, he felt something stirring in his chest. Not peace, not hope, but purpose. As the lantern inside flickered low, Clara's voice carried through the rain. "Don't bring me another storm. Samuel, end this one." He nodded, though she couldn't see it. The wind whipped harder, tearing through the trees, and he whispered to the night, "I will." The rain answered with a promise of reckoning. The storm came hard and fast, sweeping over the plains with the fury of something long denied. By nightfall, the sky was bruised and trembling, the kind of darkness that swallowed sound. The wind tore at the shingles, and rain beat against the windows like desperate hands. Inside the cabin, Clara moved quietly, her face pale in the flickering lamplight as she gathered the girls near the hearth. Samuel stood by the door, rifle in hand, every sense alive. He had been waiting for this, the inevitable reckoning. Eli paced near the window, his eyes fixed on the distant flashes of lightning. "He's out there," the boy said. "I can feel it." Samuel didn't look away from the storm. "Then he'll come tonight." Clara turned sharply. "You can still stop this. You don't have to meet him." He glanced at her, rain glistening in his hair, voice steady but low. "If I don't, he won't stop coming. Not till everything I've got left burns." The wind howled again, and for a moment all sound vanished beneath it. Then came the faint echo of hooves. Eli froze. The horses in the barn cried out. Samuel's hand tightened on the rifle. He blew out the lamp. Outside, 3 riders emerged through the sheets of rain, silhouettes black against the lightning. Jonas Red rode at the front, his duster whipping like a banner. The others flanked him, 2 rough men, faces hidden beneath wide-brimmed hats. Samuel opened the door, stepping into the downpour. "Jonas," he shouted over the storm, "you don't have to do this." Jonas dismounted slowly, his boots sinking in the mud. "Don't I?" he called back. "You think you can just ride home and start over? After what you did?" Samuel leveled the rifle. "You lie, Jonas. You always did. You left those men to die, and I took the blame because I couldn't watch them hang you for it." Jonas's grin flashed white in the storm. "You're a fool, Sam. Honor's worth nothing in this world. You should have learned that by now." He drew his pistol. "But maybe your family will learn it for you." A shot cracked the night. The sound split the storm in 2. One of Jonas's men fired first, the bullet tearing through the doorframe as Samuel dove for cover. Eli shouted, rushing to the window, returning fire. The echo of gunfire rolled like thunder across the plain. Clara pulled the girls behind the stone hearth, whispering, "Stay down, don't look, don't move." Her voice shook, but never broke. Samuel crawled to the side of the porch, firing into the dark. One of the outlaws went down, collapsing in the mud. The other shouted, "We'll burn you out, Carver." Jonas's voice rose above them all. "You think you can hide behind that house? It's already a grave." Lightning split the sky, casting the world in brief, blinding white. Samuel caught a glimpse of Jonas stepping forward, pistol raised. He fired once. The shot struck Jonas's shoulder, spinning him back. But Jonas didn't fall. He laughed through the pain, like a man too far gone to feel it. Eli burst from the door, rifle clutched tight. "Pa! Get back inside." Samuel roared, but it was too late. Jonas's remaining man turned, gun drawn. The report was deafening. Eli staggered, dropping to one knee. Samuel's heart froze. He fired without thinking. The outlaw fell face first into the mud, unmoving. Samuel ran to his son, pulling him close. Blood soaked Eli's sleeve, but the wound was clean. "It's all right," he muttered. "You'll be fine, boy. Stay with your ma." Eli nodded, teeth clenched, and stumbled back toward the cabin. Jonas's voice came again, closer now. "Looks like the war found you after all, Sam. And this time, no one's coming to save you." Samuel stood, eyes dark, rifle raised. Then let it end here. Jonas stepped out from the rain, blood streaking his arm, revolver steady in his hand. They faced each other in the open yard, thunder rolling above them like the drums of judgment. You remember Grey Ridge? Jonas said, all those men crying for help while you ran? I didn't run, Samuel said, voice breaking like old wood. I went back, pulled out who I could. You left them, Jonas. You left me. Jonas sneered. And you came home thinking you could wash the blood away? But men like us, we don't get clean. Lightning flashed again. In that brief light, Samuel saw the truth in Jonas's eyes. Not hate, but emptiness. The kind of emptiness that comes when a man loses the last thing keeping him human. Jonas fired first. The bullet grazed Samuel's side, heat and pain blooming. He didn't flinch. He aimed once, steady and sure, and fired back. The shot hit true. Jonas staggered, falling to his knees in the mud. Rain ran down his face, mingling with the blood. He laughed softly, almost tenderly. Guess you finally found your courage, Sam. Samuel walked toward him, rifle lowered. Wasn't courage, he said quietly. Just love, for what little I got left. Jonas looked up at him, the old grin flickering one last time before fading into stillness. The rain fell harder, washing the dirt from his face as if the land itself were reclaiming him. Samuel stood there for a long moment, chest heaving, until Clara's voice called from the doorway. Samuel. He turned. She stood barefoot in the mud, hair soaked, eyes wide. Eli leaned against the doorframe behind her, pale but standing. The girls clung to her skirts. Samuel dropped the rifle, letting it sink into the earth. It's done, he said. Clara stepped closer, her gaze fixed on him. You're bleeding. He looked down as if noticing for the first time. It's nothing. She reached for him, hands trembling. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The storm began to ease, the wind softening to a whisper. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a breath. You came back a stranger, Samuel. But maybe there's still something left of the man I knew. He met her eyes, rain running down his face like tears. I ain't that man anymore. Then be better, she said. He nodded once, a promise more than a word. By morning, the storm had passed. The plains steamed under a pale sun, the land glistening as if reborn. Samuel buried Jonas beneath a lone oak near the ridge, no prayers, no words, just a marker and silence. When he returned to the cabin, Eli was splitting wood, sweat and stubborn pride on his brow. Clara was tending the garden, sleeves rolled, face calm for the first time in years. The girls chased each other through the wet grass, their laughter bright as bells. Samuel watched them all for a long while, then picked up a hammer and began to mend the porch rail. For the first time since he'd come home, the work felt right in his hands. The sun rose higher, gold spilling across the prairie. The war was over. The ghosts were quiet. He looked out at the horizon and whispered, maybe this is what coming home means, not finding peace, but making it. And somewhere, carried on the morning wind, the land seemed to answer.